You know, to millions of people, he wasn't just a man, he was a living god. His followers included some of the most powerful people in the country. We're talking prime ministers. But, as we're about to see, behind that holy facade was a predator. This is the incredible story of how one of India's most powerful figures was finally brought to justice. This is the takedown of Asaram Bapu.
So let's set the scene. It's August 20th, 2013 in Jodhpur, India. A police officer, Ajay Lamba, is just going about his day in his office when his phone rings. It's a news reporter calling from Delhi, and the piece of information he's about to drop is going to kick off one of the most difficult, most dangerous investigations of Lamba's entire career.
The reporter tells him straight up that a police report, an FIR, has just been filed, and it's against one of the most powerful men in the entire country for the sexual assault of a minor. Now, Lamba is just completely floored. He knows this guy is basically untouchable. And the craziest part? He had no idea this complaint even existed, right there in his own jurisdiction.
And really, this brings us to the absolute heart of the matter, the central question of this whole story. I mean, when you have a man with literally millions of followers who believe he's a god, when you have top politicians from every single party bowing at his feet, how in the world do you even begin to arrest a god?
Okay, to really understand just how massive that challenge was, we've got to rewind a bit. We need to look at how Asaram Bapu became, well, Asaram Bapu, how he built this empire that seemed absolutely, completely untouchable.
You know, his path to power really started from humble beginnings. He was born Assamal Suma Malani, and his family lost everything during the partition of India. He said he felt this spiritual calling pretty early in life, and eventually he even left his wife to become an ascetic. Then, in 1971, his guru gives him a new name, Sant Sri Asaramji Maharaj, and boom, from a single tiny hut, his mission begins.
So, how did he grow so fast? Well, he had this simple but really powerful recipe. First off, free food and facilities. For poor people, that was a massive draw. Second, he made a big show of rejecting the caste system, which brought in tons of followers from marginalized communities. And third, he was really savvy. He tapped into this rising wave of religious sentiment in the country. And the result of all that? A global empire of over 400 ashrams.
And his power, wow, it went all the way to the top. We're not just talking about ordinary people here. His followers were some of the most powerful politicians in the entire country. You had prime ministers, chief ministers, all seen at his events, seeking his blessing. His political pull was just enormous.
But, you know, long before that 2013 case that finally brought everything crashing down, there were already some serious cracks starting to show in that holy facade. Some pretty dark allegations were bubbling up to the surface, hinting that maybe, just maybe, there was a very different kind of man behind the saintly image. And the contrast between the public image and the private reality, it was just night and day. I mean, his official story was that he'd renounced all worldly things. But when the police went to investigate this assault, they didn't find a humble hut. Nope, they found a huge air-conditioned marble bungalow. His followers were told he was all about peaceful meditation. But police records? They told a different story, one that included a murder charge way back, and even a sexual assault allegation that got buried.
And then, things got really dark in 2008. Two young boys, cousins, they go missing from his school, his Gurukul. A few days later, their mutilated bodies are found in a nearby river. And get this, the police at first refused to even file a complaint from the boys' fathers. Years go by, and an official investigation finally happens, and it gives the ashram a clean chit, clears them completely. It was just a chilling example of how much power he had to make problems disappear.
So all of that brings us right back to 2013, because this time it was different. This wasn't just another allegation that could be swept under the rug. No, this was the one. This was the case that was finally going to stick, and it was all because of the incredible courage of one young girl and a police force that just refused to back down.
The victim in this case was just 16 years old, and her family, they were true believers. They were so devoted that her father had actually taken out loans just to build an ashram in Asaram's name. I mean, they completely and utterly believed in him. Both she and her brother were students at one of his residential schools.
In the way they set her up, it was just so calculated, so manipulative. It was all designed to get her alone. It started when she got sick at school. But instead of calling a doctor, the warden claimed she was possessed by a spirit. And the only cure? Well, her parents were told it was Asaram himself. So they bring the family to his compound, tell the parents to stay outside and chant mantras for her healing, while their daughter was brought inside his room all by herself.
And this, for me, is just the most heartbreaking part of this whole thing. In her statement to the police, the girl talked about what was going through her head in that moment. She was absolutely terrified, of course, but she'd spent her entire life being taught that this man was her guru, her god. That single quote just shows you the incredible psychological hold he had on people.
So after the complaint was filed, did Asaram surrender? Of course not. He went on the run. It sparked this huge nationwide manhunt. And when the police finally cornered him, he was just so arrogant, asking them, "Do you know who I am?" The intimidation didn't stop there. Even on the flight back to Jodhpur, more than 50 of his followers bought tickets for the same plane and just started shouting slogans, trying to scare the police team. But you know what? Getting him arrested, that was just the beginning. The trial that came next was an absolute war zone. We're talking witnesses, police, lawyers, everyone involved was facing these insane levels of pressure, threats, and just straight-up violence. It became a war of pure intimidation. Asaram's followers just unleashed this brutal campaign to silence anyone who dared to speak out. Think about this number, 7. 7 key witnesses were viciously attacked. They were ambushed, beaten, some even had acid thrown on them. The message couldn't have been clearer. Stay silent or you're next. And it didn't even stop there. When the attacks weren't enough to scare people into silence, they turned to murder. 3 witnesses were shot and killed in cold blood, executed, simply because they chose to testify. This wasn't just about threats anymore. This was a full-blown campaign of terror, designed to stop the trial in its tracks.
And then there was one more. One witness who just vanished. Disappeared completely, without a trace. Never seen or heard from again. This was the terrifying reality of trying to get justice against a man like Asaram Bapu. It's just a chilling look at how far his followers would go to protect him.
But here's the amazing part. Despite the murders, despite the attacks, despite all the political pressure, it wasn't enough to stop justice. On April 25, 2018, the verdict came down. Asaram Bapu was found guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison. And just 5 years after that, he got a second life sentence for another separate rape case.
So when you look at the takedown of Asaram Bapu, it's really so much more than just a story about one criminal, right? It's this powerful and frankly scary reminder of how belief itself can be twisted and used as a weapon. When devotion is used to excuse violence, to silence victims, and to protect abusers, it really makes you stop and ask a pretty tough question. Who is the one that ultimately pays the price?